patriarchy, a relic of the past or the essence of the present? Today we'll talk about Uganda and its practice of exchanging young brides for material values. Don't switch off, or you'll miss something interesting. Everyone has seen how bulls in Spain gore people on their horns. It would be doubly dangerous if these bulls were from Uganda. This country is famous for its ancient practices of cattle breeding and unique breeds of cows with long horns. These breeds play an important role in Uganda's agriculture and economy, providing milk, meat, and other livestock products for the local population. Additionally, the Ankole breed is also valued for its exotic appearance and often attracts the attention of tourists. Historically, Uganda has become a unique cultural crossroads, where the influences of neighboring peoples and distant cultures intertwine. This has led to the formation of a unique syncretic culture that has absorbed elements of African traditional heritage, Arab, and European influences due to the unique history of this country. Ethnic groups such as the Baganda, Bashilik, Bahusa, etc., have preserved their unique traditions, customs, and languages. They bring African flair. Many of them have deep historical roots dating back to ancient times. Proximity to Arab countries led to the spread of Islam. Arab traders and missionaries penetrated the region, introducing Islamic traditions and customs. Islam became one of the important elements of Uganda's cultural mosaic, especially in the northern and eastern regions of the country. This diversity of cultural expressions and customs has become an important element of Ugandan identity. The influence of European culture became noticeable in the 19th century, when Uganda became a colonial possession of the British Empire. The British made a significant contribution to Ugandan culture, introducing the English language, Christianity, new technologies, and legal structures. This period had a significant impact on Ugandan education, social relations, and administrative structures. During the colonial dependency, Britain also built a railway network connecting Uganda to the Indian Ocean, which facilitated the development of trade in the country's economy. A rich history does not guarantee the wealth of its inhabitants. Many citizens live in dire poverty. Society here suffers from a range of problems, from a lack of educational and medical institutions to high levels of poverty and unemployment. This is, to some extent, due to the fact that state resources are limited, and many communities live in remote areas where access to basic services is limited. These problems are exacerbated by armed conflicts that have long engulfed the region. Wars and conflicts, such as the Lord's Resistance Army, LRA, uprising. Joseph Kony founded the LRA in the late 1980s and turned it into a cult with the goal of overthrowing the Ugandan government and establishing a religious mystical regime based on the Ten Commandments, supposedly inspired by the Bible. The LRA became known for its brutal methods, including the recruitment of child soldiers, sexual violence, violence against women and children, and forced displacements of populations. For many years, the LRA launched attacks on villages, destroying settlements, killing civilians, and abducting children for use as soldiers and slaves. These horrific events have left a deep mark on Ugandan society and continue to have a negative impact on human rights compliance in the country. In addition to this, traditional views and social norms that can limit women's access to education and economic opportunities continue to exist. I would really not want my girlfriend to live here. Now let's talk about customs that have carried over from the past. The tradition of bride exchange, which may involve negotiations about dowry or wedding gifts, transferred from the groom's family to the bride's family. Women and girls act as commodities in this process. Women's rights activists in Uganda and beyond oppose practices that violate the rights of women and girls and work towards promoting gender equality. They insist that marriage should be based on mutual consent and respect, and cultural traditions should not serve as a justification for violating human rights. These efforts are aimed at creating a balance between respect for traditions and the need to protect the rights of women and girls. Promoting awareness and education among all layers of society is key to ensuring that women and girls have the opportunity to make their own decisions regarding marriage and family life, thereby protecting their rights and dignity. I think you would not want to be involved in this, but I will still tell you how it all happens. These rites are organized at a certain time of the year and attract participants from different parts of the country, where people give their daughters in exchange for a dowry. On the day of the bride exchange ceremony, a sweet excitement begins in the homes. Daughters try to look as stylish and attractive as possible. Families start preparing for this day a year in advance, buying expensive clothes and shoes so that their daughters look elegant. The most important thing is to find a groom, so it is necessary to increase the price. Interestingly, at first glance, there is no situation here that resembles a forced marriage. Girls participate in this rite and seem satisfied with the situation, possibly because they see in these rites an opportunity for their own lives. On the other hand, the terms of the exchange may depend on her age and beauty. These conditions are determined by the girl's family, and the exchange takes place in accordance with their wishes. For example, the value of a young girl is higher than that of an older one. If high offers are received for daughters, families take pride in this and express it at every opportunity. Thus, families not only do not feel uncomfortable when their daughters are evaluated through dowry, but also find happiness in it. In this case, families together make a decision about the future of their daughters. Even if the father convinces the daughter to marry, if the groom is not liked by the family, they may not want to agree to the exchange. The cost can vary and become a significant addition to the well-being of a family living in conditions where every resource matters. Buying a bride for a goat here is quite real. The dowry, known as lobola, represents an important cultural and economic tradition, deeply rooted in the social life of Ugandans. It is not just a symbolic gesture, but also a practice that has deep economic implications for the families of both the bride and the groom. These values are transferred from the groom's family to the bride's family, and are often interpreted as an expression of gratitude for raising the bride, as well as a means of strengthening social and family bonds between the two families. The expenditure of the dowry in Uganda can vary greatly, but it is usually directed towards satisfying various needs of the bride's family, including improving housing conditions, education for younger family members, or as an investment in family businesses and agriculture. In some cases, part of the dowry can be used to organize the wedding ceremony, which in itself is a significant economic contribution to the local community through services, goods, and employment provided during the preparation and celebration. This horrendous practice is not widespread across the country. Often, the progressive urban population of Uganda, residing in major cities such as the capital Kampala, Gulu, and Lira, strives to abandon outdated patriarchal practices. However, in slums, it is often the only chance. A successful marriage of a daughter can become a sort of social elevator for a poor family patriarch. This is the dark side of this tradition, associated with a high level of corruption and nepotism that permeates many aspects of Ugandan society. In conditions where resources are limited and access to them is controlled by a small group of people, bride price, lobola, can exacerbate social inequality. Families with connections or able to offer a more significant dowry can gain better access to resources and opportunities, thereby strengthening the system of nepotism and corruption. These factors are interconnected, and their impact on society is dual, highlighting the complexity and contradiction of existing social practices in the context of the struggle for economic and social development. As for life in the mentioned Ugandan cities, Kampala, the capital of Uganda, is the pulsating heart of the country, where cultural diversity and economic activity mix. This city is famous for its hills, each offering unique attractions such as the Parliament, the Buganda royal palaces, and numerous religious temples. Despite its growing urban landscape, Kampala also faces challenges typical of many developing metropolises, including the spread of slums where living conditions remain very low. Trash, dirt, poverty, and disease are natural companions of these areas. In contrast to Kampala, cities like Jinja, known for its whitewater rafting at the source of the Nile, and Entebbe, with its botanical gardens and international airport, offer a more peaceful and relaxed lifestyle. These cities showcase another side of Ugandan urban life, where natural beauty and historical landmarks take center stage. However, away from the urban hustle and bustle, the majority of the Ugandan population lives in rural areas, characterized by traditional lifestyles based on agricultural production. The Ugandan countryside is colorful and diverse, with endless green fields where coffee, tea, bananas, and other crops are grown, forming the basis of the local economy. Life here is closely connected with nature, and local communities maintain deep traditional knowledge and respect for the land. Now we will move to an entirely different reality, to the slums, areas like Kabuli and Bwindi. Kibuli is located on one of Kampala's hills, offering stunning views of the city and Lake Victoria. Despite its attractive geographical position, the area suffers from overcrowding, poor sanitation, and a lack of basic services. Homes here are often made from impermanent materials, such as sheet metal and cardboard, making them vulnerable to inclement weather and other hazards. Kibuli residents face serious challenges in accessing clean drinking water, exacerbating the risk of waterborne diseases. Bwindi, another major slum area, is also located in Kampala and is known for its high population density and complex socio-economic conditions. In Bwindi, issues with access to basic services such as education and healthcare are particularly acute. Unemployment and low family income lead to a cycle of poverty that is hard to break. Children in Bwindi face difficulties in receiving quality education due to the lack of school supplies, clothing, and even the fact of attending school, which limits their future prospects. Life in these areas features a high degree of community cohesion, where residents work together to overcome hardships, although they face limited opportunities to improve their conditions. Be cautious, as wandering through the slums can surprise you with not just astonishment, but also a bullet. It is better for a casual traveler to avoid them. Crime in Uganda's slums is a serious issue faced by its inhabitants every day. The absence of effective social protection measures and limited opportunities for legitimate earnings create fertile ground for various kinds of crimes, including drug trafficking, prostitution, and robberies. Drugs are becoming increasingly common in these areas, as the lack of hope and prospects leads many to turn to drugs as a way to cope with harsh living conditions. This not only exacerbates health problems among the slum population, but also leads to an increase in crime, as drug addicts often resort to theft and other crimes to fund their addiction. Prostitution is also a significant issue, as limited economic opportunities force some slum dwellers to seek income in the sex industry. This not only puts them at risk of HIV and other sexually transmitted infections, but also deepens social inequality and discrimination. Despite the physical and social disadvantages, slums are vibrant communities with a strong sense of neighborhood and mutual aid. Residents often come together to address common problems, creating informal organizations to support each other in difficult conditions. These communities also thrive with small businesses. Numerous stalls selling food, clothing, and household goods line the streets, testifying to the indomitable spirit of entrepreneurship and the residents' desire to improve their lives. However, there is little benefit from this. The voice of the people is sewn up with the stern thread of dictatorship. Political instability and the prolonged dominance of a single political force under the leadership of President Yoweri Museveni create conditions in which resources and opportunities for development are distributed unevenly. This leads to many community-level initiatives facing obstacles in the form of bureaucratic barriers and corrupt schemes, which deepens social inequality and undermine efforts at self-organization. President Yoweri Museveni has been in power in Uganda since 1986, after his National Resistance Party seized control of the country, following an armed conflict. His rule has been marked by significant political and economic transformations, including the introduction of market reforms and efforts to combat the spread of HIV/AIDS. Despite these achievements, Museveni and his administration face criticism for suppressing political opposition, limiting press freedom, and violating human rights. One of the main charges against Museveni's rule is the use of state structures, including the police and armed forces, to suppress any form of dissent and criticism. Reports from international human rights organizations regularly point to arbitrary arrests, torture, and even extrajudicial killings of political activists and journalists who oppose his policies. Furthermore, campaigns against political opposition are often accompanied by accusations of election rigging and obstruction of the activities of opposition parties and their candidates. These actions create an atmosphere of fear and censorship, limiting the opportunities for free and fair elections. Museveni's prolonged rule and the challenges associated with it, such as the suppression of freedom of expression, human rights violations, and corruption, pose serious obstacles to Uganda's social and economic development. Corruption in state institutions limits entrepreneurs' access to financial and land resources necessary for business development, especially in the small and medium-sized segment. This exacerbates economic inequality and leads to deepening poverty among the population. But despite all the contradictions, this country has every chance of achieving success in the coming century. Thanks to its geographical location, fertile lands, and abundance of natural resources, including important minerals and significant water resources. The country attracts attention with its picturesque landscapes, rich cultural heritage, and diversity of wildlife, making it an attractive destination for tourism. In addition, Uganda has a young and growing population, representing a significant human resource capable of supporting economic development and innovation. Sooner or later, dictators die, and patriarchal practices become obsolete, giving way to good and reforms. Thank you for watching the video. Like it and watch other videos on our channel. See you in new meetings.